Hi, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today's video is on how to make this beautiful corset top. So this is what interests you. Ensure to stay to the end so you can follow the step-by-step process in making this corset top. And if you enjoyed this video, ensure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already. This helps the video to get to more people. Let's get down into the tutorial. So to make this top, I have a particular video on my channel on how to draft a corset pattern with yoke and basque. So I will link it in the description box below or somewhere on the screen so you go watch it out. So this is the pattern I'll be using for it. I'll make alteration at the down part of the front. So this is the back pattern, and the other one is the front pattern for it. For the front pattern, I will alter the down part of it, that's the basque area, and I'll bring in a new pattern paper to do this. So I'll using this brown pattern paper to do this. I will bring it very close to the tip just to make it to align the same. So I'll make it this way, and I'll use my masking tape to pin it down so that it will lay flat and relaxed. So I will mask it up this way. So after masking it up, I will measure what I have for the basque. The basque I use for this particular pattern is 4 inches. Then I will extend the initial basque design we already have, that's from the waistline downwards. I will extend it to extra 4 inches, which is everything in total is 8 inches. That's from the waistline downward is 8 inches, and I'll mark 1.5 inch inward just the way I did now, and I'll make it in a straight line. After making this in a straight line, I will come up from the 1.5 inch I just marked now. I'll come up by 3 inches and make it also in a straight line. After doing this, I will curve it using my curve to curve it just this way. You can use your freehand sketch if you don't have your pattern curves for it. So I'll make sure everything matches and align together. So I curved it this way, and the next thing to do now is to label it. This is 1.5 inch, and I will cut it out. After cutting it out, I need to tape in the other one, like make it to relax more firm. So after doing this, I will go back and tape it at the back as well so that it just relax well for me. So after doing this is the full pattern I'll be using to make this beautiful top you saw on your screen earlier. So this is the complete pattern, and these are the fabrics I'll be using and my lining piece and the patterns for this top. So I went ahead to cut out the necessary materials I need for it. So I added 1/2 inch allowance around the bust area. I cut out both interfacing. I used hairstay, and at the down part I cut out the lining piece together, like added extra 1.5 inch around that down part. That's because I want to fold in the fabric inwards. Like I went ahead to reduce the lining piece so that it can be able to fold inside well. So at the end of the video, you see what I was talking about. I went ahead to iron both the lining piece and the main piece to the interfacing I used for this particular tutorial. So I will keep the front and the back and work on the bust area. So for the bust area, I will unpin it and I will match it up, the side front and the center front for the bust. I'll match it up so that I can be able to sew it. I'll trim off the excess, like the excess interfacing I used for it. So after trimming it off, I will match it up at this point. So the side front to the center front and one side front to the center front. While transferring my patterns to fabrics, I notched these bust points so it can match when I'm sewing it. So I will pin up that area. I will pin it up to the other end and to the other end as well. So after pinning it up like the way I'm doing now, this is the outcome of it. So I will do the same thing for the other bust area. Match up the notched part for the bust point, then pin it from that side down to the other end as well. So this is how the both of them look. I will go ahead now to my sewing machine to stitch it around there and do the same thing for this other side. Likewise to the lining piece, I'll match it up center front to side front and the other center front to the side front and stitch it. And this is how the both of them look after stitching on my sewing machine. I went ahead to press it open, the inseam. Do the same thing for the lining piece as well. So now after this, I will bring in my bias I'll be using for the design in front of this dress. So I will match the bias like this, trying to give it a particular look or shape that I desire. So after stitching it, this is what it looks like, and this is what I am trying to achieve for this other bust area. So for this side, it measures 5 inches in length. Yeah, then I will go over to this other side. For the center front, I will come down by 2 inches. I'll come down by 2 inches, then mark it this way. Then for the side front, I'll come down by 1.5 inch. So after marking the 1.5 inch, I'll connect it this way. So this is just the way I'm going to put my bias, and I will put it to this other end to give me the same look. This is the bra cup I'll be using for this particular top. So I will fold it and I will notch it at that down part. So after notching it, the reason for this notch is for it to match up with the center joining for the bust area. So this is just it, and I will start from the middle to pin it. I'll pin it this way, making sure it's relaxed. I have a short video on my channel on how to do this as well if you don't get what I'm doing now. So I'll pin it all around and try adjusting it as well, making sure everything relaxes very well as I'm pinning it. And this is just how it looks like after pinning it. I will stitch it from there all the way to this other side. So I will do the same thing for the other bust side. I'll go over to my sewing machine to stitch the both bust, and this is the outcome of it. I'll keep this aside to work on the front. So for the front, I will pin it and I will open up the front and trim off the excess interfacing I have around the bust. So this is just it, and it's time for me to use my wriggling bone on the front. So I will fold my wriggling bone just this way. It has to curve this way when you're trying to sew your wriggling bone onto your dress. So before I sew it, I have to notch the center, yeah, merge it up and notch it, so I'll get the center for this top. So after this, I will go over to my wriggling bone and I'll start from that center to sew it downwards just that way. And this is just the way it's going to curve, and these are the bone channel I'll be creating for this top. So for the bust area, I will also fold it, like I'll bring in the pattern paper and trying to know where the bust darts meets with the main fabric for the front. So this is just where it is, that line there. So I'll mark it and notch it as well, so that when I'm putting my bias and my bone, it will come out straight and equal on both sides. So I'll notch that place now and I'll open it up, and this is just where I'm going to put my bone, just that way, to meet at the center front and to the other side of it. I went ahead to sew my regular bone, and this is the outcome of it. And this is the back for this top. I did the same thing for the back. I went ahead to iron it to lay flat, and this is how flat it is right now. After this, I'll bring in my bias, and this is it. So I will stitch my bias onto or on top of the regular bone I just matched. Now just trying to use the bias to cover up those bone channels. So this is just the bone channels. I'll use the bias to cover up. So I'll go ahead now to my sewing machine and do it for both the front and the back, and this is the outcome of this. So I've stitched the bias onto the front and the back. So after this, I'll bring in the cup, and I'll make sure that I'm matching it side front to side front and center front to center front. And the bias also for the darts is matching with the notched parts I did earlier. So this is just the reason I did the notched parts. So I will stitch it like this, and after stitching it, just make sure that it's relaxed while stitching it. This is the outcome of the stitches I just made now, joining the bust to the main piece for this top. So I went ahead to add the loops for the back, just making a straight loops using my bias. So I also joined the lining piece as well, and this is the back lining for this top. So after this, now it's time for us to join the top. So I will bring in the front piece, the main piece, and I'll match it side front to side back, and the other side front to the side back, and I'll move over to my sewing machine to stitch it like this, and this other end. So this is the outcome after stitching it. And I also ironed the side seam open, yeah, and I also joined the lining piece together and ironed the side seams open. I left this piece here because I want to turn it inside out. So I will put it front facing front, and I'll move over to my sewing machine now, and I'm going to stitch it this way that I just placed it. I'll stitch it from this other end and all the way to this other end. When I get to this center back, I will place it this way, putting the loops inside, and I will stitch it this way. And I'll also do the same thing for the other side back. So before stitching the other down, I will first of all stitch this side before I go ahead to stitch this other side. So this is just the way I did it right here, and this is how it looks. This is the down part. I told you that I will be folding inside. So this is just everything now, and this is the space I left to turn it inside out. So I'll go ahead now to notch it. I will notch it the down part, this normal thing we do for curvy areas. I'll notch it down to this other end, just trying to give it a neat finishing at the end. So after this, now I will turn it inside out using that same space I gave for it. So I will ensure that all the edges are notched and they come out very well. So I will turn it inside out just the way I'm doing, carefully. So this is it. After I finish turning it out, I'm making sure the places are relaxed. I will put in my scissors now just to bring out those sharp points, those sharp edges, so that it can come out, and give it the normal shape for this particular top. So I will bring it out, and I'll go over now to press it and iron all the edges so that it can lay flat and more relaxed. So I went ahead now to iron it, and this is just the way it looks after ironing it. It's looking beautiful and well relaxed. For the sleeve of this top, I went ahead to cut out fabrics that measures 16 inches in length and as well 34 inches in width. So it measures 16 inches in length and 34 inches in width. I'll fold it into two equal parts, making sure that the other end meets each other. So I'll go over to my sewing machine and stitch it down there. And after stitching it, this is how it looks like. And now it's time for us to hem the both sides. So for the upper part, I will hem it, like I'll hem it twice. You can decide to interlock it, then hem it once, but I decided to hem mine twice, just the way I did now. And I'll hem the other side too twice, then just hem it in a way that the elastic you're using can pass inside it. So I've gone ahead to do it for the both sleeves, and this is just the way it looks. This is where the elastic will pass from. So this is the elastic I'm using, and the safety pin I'll use to pass my elastic inside. So I'll put the safety pin on the elastic and I will pass it through that hole I just gave for the elastic, and I will pass it just the way I am doing now. And when it gets to the other end now, I'll try to readjust my elastic, try adjusting it so that it can, fit in with the sleeve size you're working with. The round sleeve I'm working with is 12 inches. It measured 5.5 inches, and I will stitch the elastic that end. I'll do the same thing for the both sleeves, for the upper part and the down part of the sleeves. And this is the outcome of everything that I did. I passed the elastic for both the upper part and the down part. So I'll turn it inside out. And this is just how it looks like. So after doing this now, I'll bring in the top. To put the sleeve to the top, I would join the both sides together. And I'll measure 1 inch like this and join it. I'll do the same thing for the other side. Join the both sides together, measure 1 inch and use 1 inch to stitch it. So this is just the way I put it, and this is the outcome of the sleeves. And the 1 inch I stitched on it, and the other side for the 1 inch I also stitched on it. This is the outcome of everything we've been working on, and this is the inside of it, looking all neat and beautiful. So I went ahead to hand stitch the opening I had for the lining piece, and this is everything we worked on.